Ideal. So I've got to ask, sometimes when people go through the experiences, sometimes they see flashes, colors, ideas, concepts, memories. Sometimes they see just nothing at all. What was that experience like for you?
I didn't see anything.
Okay.
I didn't really see anything, any real images. But I did feel a real sense of it was just at one point in what you said, and I just felt myself. I think I started crying. I felt tears come into my eyes.
Okay, so we're recording. So this is going to be just a live session of SBT, and I've got Jack here with me. Now, just for context, Jack and I worked together really, how many years ago was it now, Jack? It was quite a,
It must have been maybe 3 years ago, I'd say.
yeah. So it was just sort of before we started really delving into some of the SBT pieces. Jack is now actually within Superconscious University. He's one of the students who's going to be going through this. But what we said is, let's create like a live coaching piece. I only have a snippet of an idea as to what I'm working on with Jack today, but this is very much not for show. This is very much a genuine session that we're going to have. Something that works in my favor, of course, within this session is that I've been able to get some really, really amazing results with the work that Jack and I have done in the past. And we naturally have a really, really good relationship. So aspects of rapport have already been built, which is going to be really helpful. And he's also going to be, he's literally learning Superconscious Breakthrough Therapy as we speak as well. So he's going to have a bit of an insight. So this puts him in an advantage. We have to remember the starting point as to where Jack was before we ever did any of these things. So I just want to be really transparent with the background as to what we're doing here. And let's see the amazing session that we're going to have. So Jack, obviously I've got a very sort of 30,000 foot overview as to what's happening at the moment. But what brought you to this session today? What is it that would allow us to get to the end of the session and for you to go, this has been the exact session that I think I've needed for the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, just going back a little bit of context of from where I've been to where I've come to, and then maybe where I feel like I've regressed a little bit more. Obviously, we worked together a few years ago, and that work was to help me come off antidepressants and change my identity around that, which I feel had a massive impact positively on me. I feel like my identity completely shifted from I'm somebody that suffers with depression, I'm somebody that has anxiety on a daily basis, to actually that's not my identity anymore. Over the last maybe 3 to 4 months or so, I've just noticed that I've started to regress again slightly. I feel like there's a lot more low mood. I'm noticing, I notice it in my self talk, and I feel like my identity is now kind of going back towards that part of my life again.
Okay. So that starts to happen over the last sort of 3 to 4 months. Now, again, Jack, we're not going to discuss anything that you don't feel 100% comfortable discussing. But one of the things I naturally comes up for me when I'm hearing that of someone who's gone for several years with this amazing identity shift and something has started to revert back, it's not that it's randomly going to be reverting back. So we know that something has probably started to happen maybe 3 or 4 months ago. What I'm not going to be asking Jack to do is to suddenly go back into the entire history and to relive any of those moments. SBT is all about helping people get safe, fast, and effective breakthroughs. But I do want to get an idea as to what's going on so I can try and leverage that later on in the future and the work that we're going to do so that this doesn't happen again. So, Jack, when you said it sort of 3 or 4 months ago, what started generally happening around that time that you think could have created maybe a mini catalyst for how you've been feeling on and off for the last 3 to 4 months?
Do you know what? I'm not actually entirely sure. And when I say 3 to 4 months, that's really loose. So there's times when I've noticed in say a year ago, maybe at different times of the year, like Christmas time or times like that, that I felt like, oh, I've got real low mood here. But I just kind of put that down to the seasons, maybe, or just that at Christmas time is everybody's happier or appears to be happier, and then there's me maybe not where I want to be in my life and my relationships and things like that, which highlight it a bit more. Um, but then when I say the last sort of 3 to 4 months, um, I don't know an exact thing that I could say and pinpoint. Actually, that's definitely where it is. Um, I could say maybe that work was quite stressful for me.
Okay.
Obviously, I've left that career now and I'm doing something new. Um, but as I say that, that doesn't seem true. It doesn't seem like that would be a reason for me to suffer with this low mood again.
Okay.
Um, I'm not denying that it could be, but it doesn't seem to match. So
Okay, interested. So there's a few pieces that naturally come up for me because I'm listening to obviously everything that Jack is saying right now. Of okay, well it might be this and it could be this. I have to remember something really important, that all of this is being said through the lens of concern that he's becoming an anxious person. So whatever he's saying, there's going to be obviously some accuracy there. It's really important to listen to what he's saying, but there's obviously going to be this little tinge of concern or paranoia to could it be something deeper? Does that sound about right, Jack, as I'm saying that out loud?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it almost feels like there's something within me that I don't know that is creating that, yeah, that question. And just for context as well, because of that, I've started delving, because the sort of person I am is somebody that likes to find things out and I want to join the dots. So I've then started questioning myself and looking at different avenues of, oh, maybe it's because my brain's wired this way, or oh, do you know what? Actually, it fits really well. Some of the things that are happening to me fit really well with OCD. So I've been looking into OCD. I'm always looking for an answer as to why.
Okay. So that there is just perfect. So what we're doing is, what can generally be happening in the body. Anxiety, most people generally think that anxiety is something that either happens in the brain or happens in the body. And neither are technically 100% true. Anxiety is what happens when there is a feeling in the body and the brain tries to create a story or a narrative about what that feeling is. And the moment that it feels like it has an idea and it can finally close the loop and rest on that idea, it goes, that makes sense. And it will create a sense of relief. And so naturally, what Jack started to do is if he's been in anxious states, his mind naturally wants to be able to like finish the loop so he can go, that's the reason this is the case. I can now make sense of this situation, which will give me a form of temporary relief, and then I can continue to move through. Does that, again, Jack, we never want to play the game please the therapist, as you know, but could that sound like what might be happening to some extent here?
That sounds like my whole life in a nutshell.
Okay. Perfect. So we know that we're close. Now, I already know, and again, this is going to be an unfair advantage in this moment, is that I know obviously Jack on and off throughout the years, but 3 or 4 months ago, ironically, is when you first started considering leaving your job, I believe. Okay. And how long were you doing your career for before leaving your job?
So I was in teaching for around 7 years.
Okay. So, and how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm now 34. I'm 35 in a couple of days.
Okay. So most of our adult life, and did we ever have like a big serious career before teaching?
I wouldn't say a big serious career. No.
Okay. So if we've been doing something for 7 years, that's enough of a reason to have an identity surrounding those pieces. And remember, and this is very much something that we cover within Superconscious University, that when we're looking to make an irreversible transformation with someone, one of the things that naturally happens is we need to disrupt the identity. The problem is that there is nothing more powerful in the human psyche than trying to remain consistent with that identity that we have. So the moment that we're trying to help someone make their identity go from A to B, there's naturally going to be resistance. Jack inadvertently has been a teacher. This has been his first proper career in all of his adult life, and he's finally started to make changes towards moving away from that. It's like, it would be really unfair of us to not think that there could be contributing factors of concern if we're leaving something that has been, I imagine, despite the fact it's had its stress, it's also been very safe. We know, I imagine, from things that we've said in previous sessions, that it's something that you're actually quite good at as well. So we know that this is going to be something that was meeting many of Jack's needs, stable, financially as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's right. He's now leaving these pieces. Now, we don't know for a fact at this point, this is definitely what's creating these feelings of concern that have come up for Jack over the last 3 to 4 months. But as that was the exact time that I know he was having those conversations, it wouldn't be mad to think that that could be the case. But it's not my job to diagnose. I don't know. So that's something that I'm going to want to press on a little bit more. So Jack, if I then start to maybe go into a few more details about that, does that sound like it could be a contributing factor, or do you think that actually that's not going to be that relevant to that situation?
It could definitely be a part of it. Yeah. But then I'm now saying to myself, well, you've felt anxious before the job change came up. So it's only, if it is part of it, it's only a part of it.
Okay, great. So let's start to follow that thread. So what I'm constantly doing throughout these sessions, throughout any SBT session, is I'm constantly trying to work out, okay, when Jack says he's at point A, what the hell does he actually mean? He also says that he wants to try and get to point B. I don't really know what that means yet. And I'm still trying to work out what the gap is. There's a few pieces that I want to explore. I feel like we're closer to knowing what point A really is, but I don't quite know yet. So I'm just going to ask him. So, Jack, the idea of being an anxious person, just so I know that we're talking about the same thing, what does it require to become an anxious person? If I wanted to follow the blueprint to become an anxious person, what would I need to do to make sure that I get there? Not to just have anxiety, that's a normal feeling that everyone can have in their brain under times of stress, but to become an anxious person, for that to become my identity, what do I need to do?
You need to overthink
Okay, how often?
almost, it feels like almost every waking moment.
Okay, so I need to overthink every single waking moment about anything in particular?
Things that are the most important to you.
Okay. If I'm only overthinking half of, so every other moment, am I an anxious person?
Yes.
Okay, what about,
I think so.
okay, well, at the moment, this is your session, Jack, so that's the only opinion that really matters, right? Remember, and this is about what's going on in between your ears. So really, that might as well just be truth in that moment. So what about only 25% of the time? Are you an anxious person if every fourth thought is overwhelming? Or you're overthinking about every fourth thought?
Um, no, I'd say it's pretty human.
Okay. So we know now that, at least for Jack in his model of the world, we know that to become an anxious person, it needs to be between 25 and 50% of the time. Right. Which is interesting, by the way, isn't it? I can see you smiling there because there's naturally this thing of, well, I've never thought about it before. And even as we're talking about it, that almost might seem a little bit ludicrous to some extent. And yet, this is what happens when we bring fear out of vagueness. Because fear is very, very difficult to live in sunlight. It can't live there. It has to live in shadows, right? It's like a woodlouse, right? So I want you to imagine that we bring this scary woodlouse out and we've got it in the sunlight here. And we don't want to be afraid of it too much. Let's start looking at it. And again, by the way, I'm just doing this so I understand what Jack means when he's saying an anxious person. So it's between 25 and 50%. So let's just narrow it a little bit more. What if it's 30% of the time?
So overthinking 30% of the time would or would not make you anxious, an anxious
Uh,
person.
yeah, so at the moment, I only overthink 30% of the time. Am I an anxious person yet?
Just I don't know. I'd say maybe not really,
Okay. What
because
about?
70% is a big proportion of your life, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you're not wrong, so especially as you're unconscious for at least a third of every day anyway, right? Okay, so we're asleep and we're not going to be anxious when we're sleeping because we're just going to be processing different dreams and stuff. So it's in a waking day, we know that, okay, in order for someone to become an anxious person, there needs to be generally, if there's 16 hours in a working day, 30% of that, so 5 hours of overthinking. Are they an anxious person?
If they're overthinking for 5 hours,
Five hours a day.
I'd say that sounds pretty uncomfortable.
Okay. How many hours per day are you overthinking at the moment?
At the moment,
Yeah.
I would say the majority of the day.
Okay. So how many hours are we going for?
Waking hours.
Yeah.
So say I'm awake from say 7 in the morning till 11 at night.
Yeah.
Um, I'd say it depends what I'm doing.
Okay. So
Um,
this isn't overthink. We're not overthinking equally. We're overthinking more about particular things.
yeah, overthinking more about particular things. Yeah, life choices. Yeah.
Okay. And do you feel comfortable sharing what some of those life choices are?
For me, something that I think I've always found that I overthink are romantic relationships.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that I've always overthought. Um, whether it's the correct decision, whether I like them enough, whether and funnily enough, and this I'll share this, but it might make me seem a certain way. I promise I'm not an arrogant person. For some reason, the thought process is always it's not whether they like me enough, it's always whether I like them enough.
Yeah.
It's always whether I should stick or twist.
Okay. And
Um,
if you and so that stick and twisting, remember, we have to remember, and this is like SBT 101, but actually it's just psychology 101, is that every single feeling that we have, it's for that feeling to exist, unless it's like literally just biochemical, like we're taking 70% CO2 in a bag, that will make you feel anxious, regardless of how tranquil a person you are, whether you meditate on the top of mountains or not, or if you have severe gut inflammation, or if you've got thyroid issues. 9 times out of 10, the kind of anxiety that we're talking about in this session is very much the idea that there is a feeling, and I need to create a narrative around that feeling. What is that narrative? If the narrative doesn't exist, then the feeling doesn't really hold much power anymore. So we know that whether or not you like them enough probably isn't necessarily the source of that feeling. It's what that means either later on down the line or below that. So again, Jack, I know that before we recorded, this wasn't an area that you wanted to spend too much time on, but if you felt comfortable unpacking that a little bit, we can absolutely go in that direction if you want.
Yeah, I'm happy either way, really. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that anxious feeling, what I'm trying to do now is, again, I've started to get clarity over what Jack means about being an anxious person, but now I want to work out what some of the originating beliefs are that can lead into that. And what we're going to do is, in a moment, we're going to round that all together, and we're actually just going to treat it. Now, I know Jack well enough that even as I say that, there's going to be some skepticism there. So we'll unpack that a little bit later. So the anxious person, that's the fear I'm becoming, or maybe deep down I am an anxious person. We know that's probably something that we want to treat today. But there's also going to be some sources of that anxiety. You've said that it's whether or not I like them enough. What happens if you don't like them enough? What does that mean?
And it means that I'll overthink it even more to a stage where I can't even enjoy their company because that rumination is so much.
Okay.
And it's really frustrating because most of the time I find initially I really like that person. And I see all the amazing, wonderful, positive qualities in them. And then maybe one or two things will come up for me that I feel like I should look past. But then the focus will be on those small things. And I find it difficult because I feel like in their company or when I'm not with them, I'll overthink it, ruminate. And what should be a lovely early experience of dating then might sometimes turn into all we're doing here is overthinking. Let's just throw that away.
Okay.
And
So,
it's almost like people say, oh, he's self-sabotaging. And I think, am I? I don't know. Or am I just doing it because they're not the person for me? Or yeah, it's that constant thought loop. Yeah.
okay. And so there's another part to that story that I think is a little bit deeper that I also want to look at, that thankfully doesn't involve the relationship piece too much. But again, Jack said something a moment ago that I actively wanted to circle back to, because he said a statement that seemed concrete and normal to him, but I didn't really know what he meant. And what's interesting is for us to understand if it's concrete, it very much is like concrete. Is it tangible enough that we can put it in a wheelbarrow? Is it tangible enough that we can easily draw a picture based on the thing that Jack has said, and we know exactly what he's talking about? Because I don't actually know, I'm just going to in a non-judgmental way, I'm going to ask him. So, Jack, when you speak about the idea of liking someone enough, what does that mean? What does it mean to like someone enough, or to not like them enough? How do we know it's enough?
I think I'm just a good judge of character. I know a good person when I meet them. So a good person for me would be somebody that ticks lots of boxes like kindness, they're caring. We can have open communication and conversations about things that aren't always easy to talk about. Honesty, loyalty. We can have fun together. Those sort of things really are important for me. Really important.
And so, help me understand this then. So, those are things that are important. I asked you what is enough, and you were able to come back with a lot of clarity, which is great. It means that, okay, this isn't something that we need to go into in too much detail, because, you clearly know. So, is it just if someone doesn't tick those boxes that you're not sure if you like them in that moment?
Um, if somebody doesn't tick those boxes for me, then I'm happy to walk away from it because I know that is what I would like them to tick for me. So that's like a blueprint I've got in a way.
Okay.
It's when they tick all of those boxes,
Yeah.
and then I find that there's small little things that I'm still questioning. Could be something about appearance. It could be I pick up on like one little flaw and just focus and ruminate on that. Whereas I feel like other people would just overlook that and be like, oh, no one's perfect, Jack. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And that's where I
That's
get really frustrated with myself.
okay. So it sounds, and again, Jack, I want you to absolutely correct me if I'm off. But it sounds like that's not where the story finishes. It's like, okay, that happens. I ruminate over that. So I'm going to pretend to be you for a moment. And with someone, they tick all the boxes, the blueprint that I have of values that are important to me in a relationship. And there's one little flaw that I find. I start to ruminate on that flaw. I don't think that the fear that's causing the anxiety is that flaw. It's about what that flaw either means about you or what the flaw means about what happens next in the relationship. Is that, feel free to push back on that if I could be way off.
No, that seems to resonate.
Okay. So what we want to do then is, in order to be able to go to the source, to pull out the weed, is we just want to follow that garden path back to the source, which is what's the original weed that's actually creating that feeling. So we can just go a little bit deeper, right? Which is, okay, first of all, in fact, I'll let you lead here. There's that flaw I'm ruminating. That thing isn't perfect, or that thing maybe means that I won't be happy with this person forever. Is that
Yeah.
like fair? Okay. And then what happens? What does that mean if that person isn't right for you forever?
Guilt, dread, low mood.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
guilt, dread, and low mood. Again, we know that's going to be attached to another story. What's the story that that's attached to?
uh, Possibly disappointing somebody, um, breaking someone's heart, um, what it says about me, maybe.
Okay. What does it say about you?
Um, I'm a perfectionist
Okay. And why is that so bad?
because I'll never be happy with somebody because nobody's perfect.
Okay. So this leads us back into the I never be happy. I could also the idea of I might just become an anxious person. So is it just not an anxious person? Is it just I will never be a truly happy person?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So you said probably, so I don't feel completely certain on that. Tell me what's off about that statement.
Um, part of being human is experiencing a variety of emotions. So I know that to be happy in all states, in all time, forever is completely not going to happen. But I would just like to feel content um, in in those areas of my life.
Okay. And so it's predominantly in there's this deep resounding. So, and just for context, I'm just trying to clarify exactly where we are again. Points A, points B. I want to work out what the gap is so I know that I can help Jack cross it. Essentially, I'm going to open the door for him shortly. And so on those pieces, it's the fear that maybe deep down I am just an anxious person. And maybe there's other layers to that. Who the hell was I kidding myself? Yeah, you had a good 3 years, pal, but what does that really matter? It's only a matter of time before we go back. The reason that anxious person identity feels like it could become more than just an annoying weed, but something bigger, is because right now Jack's actually experiencing quite a lot of overthinking thoughts about a particular area of his life. And so the idea of pretending that he's not an anxious person when those things, as opposed to just he's going through a season of overthinking, but it's irrelevant. If he's got the path that he has, then naturally it's going to feel like those overthinking thoughts. It's very difficult to believe the opposite about yourself if that's what your present moment is currently experiencing. And what we're doing here, remember, is none of these things are personal. They're just things as they are. And once we know what they are, then we can do something about them. So there's an element of I'll never be able to be happy to some extent, but there's something else going on. You answered very rationally in the fact that, well, we're human and we have lots of different experiences, but there was something else there. It was I'll never be happy in that area of my life.
Mm.
And so what do you think some of the other stories are that are maybe contributing to the fear, the concern, or the overthinking?
Um, can we go into the past?
Only if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, so I just feel like uh, I've I've always got this narrative in the back of my head from an old relationship where I was in my early 20s. I was really content with somebody. I felt really happy. When I look back, that's how I felt. Um, but then I had to go on to antidepressants because I was actually in a really difficult period of my life where I was struggling with depression. Um, and then I feel as though my story is that when I split up with that person, because it was my decision, my choice, the reason I did that was because I was on antidepressants. And I'll never feel like that content again. And that ruined love for me and my experience of love. Um, I don't know how much I believe that that's true, but that story kind of does come up quite a lot.
Okay.
Um, and I remember at the time, because I was so unhappy and depressed, I didn't realize what it was exactly and why I felt so down and depressed. I'd have lots of conversations with friends and my mum and family members to try and work out why I felt so depressed. I just remember my mum saying to me, well, maybe it's your relationship. Maybe you're not happy in your relationship. And then I think I began ruminating on my relationship and thinking, maybe it is that. And that created a constant obsession. And the obsession was, yeah, the relationship's causing this. And the compulsions were in my head of, well, let's just check. Let's try and prove it. Let's check. Let's try and prove it. And I think I'm still in that place a little bit when I go into dating somebody new. And
Okay. So, thank you for sharing that. That is really, really helpful. So there's a few threads that I naturally want to explore, and it's really fascinating. So the first one, Jack's brought up a memory. Now, memories can be treated. Generally, it's not the first thing that we'll go for, but memory reconsolidation is something that can really help people. You know, when it comes to trauma, when it comes to anything negative, that there's still an emotional charge, we can help the brain move that from one area to the other so that it no longer feels like it's got that power. So I naturally want to check on a scale of 0 to 10, Jack. 10 being, oh gosh, that's the emotional charge or the negative feelings around that is really, really strong. And 0 being, well, no, I mean, I can think about the memory. The memory still remains. I haven't forgotten it, but it doesn't bother me in any way. What number would you give to the emotional negative charge around that memory?
it's quite high.
Okay.
It's probably around a 7.
Okay. Perfect. So we've got a 7 there. So we know that the moment that something is like a 7 or higher, we know that we probably want to look at it to some extent. So the emotional negative charge around that memory is a 7. But what was interesting is Jack then started to tell us some of the stories that came out the back of that. Now, he didn't use these words, so I just want to double check, is this what's happening? And again, that's what's lovely with these kinds of relationships that we have with clients with SBT, because it's so non-judgmental, because one of our primary values are curiosity. It's okay to ask questions if we think we're getting closer to where we want to be, because the client can sense that it's not coming from a judgmental place. We just want to know so we can help. Nothing more, nothing less. So, Jack, I'm just going to pop a statement out there to see if it lands. Is it the I can't be happy in relationships, or even if we change that to relationships cause anxiety and depression, which one of those resonates in a much more truthful way when you hear,
Relationships cause anxiety and depression
there
is,
we go,
yeah,
relationships cause anxiety and depression.
and overthinking and rumination. Yeah,
There we go. And 0 to 10, how true does that feel?
10.
There we go. So now we've got this wonderful man in front of us who's been saying, I've been having these thoughts and feelings in the relationships. And we now know that deep down there's a subconscious story about that. Now, if we gave that to anyone, they feel the same way. So that's a 10. The emotional charge of the original memory that may or may not have caused that story, we know that's a 7. And even as we've been speaking about this, Jack, I'm curious, the statement, I'm an anxious person, 0 to 10, how true does that feel?
3.
Three. Okay. So now there's, because that's a 3, that doesn't feel very much alive. It feels like that's just about starting to act up because we're in a relationship that is probably pretty good, but we've got this deep down fear and subconscious belief that relationships actually cause depression, anxiety, or at least they cause depression, anxiety for you.
Absolutely. And what I would say is that I hold having a quality relationship and then having a family as at the very top of my my life ambitions.
Okay. So we've got this amazing goal and this really strong, deep embedded value, and we have this subconscious story that actually acts in opposition with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it feels so strong. It's almost like you're given something that you really want, but every time you get close to having it, it gets taken away. And then you go again and it gets taken away. And that pattern has continued for me for as long as I can remember, really. I've had relationships in the time since that big event. Um, and I'd say I have been content in relationships for moments of time, but it always starts like this. Always.
Okay. So let's say you and I just jumped into a parallel universe, Jack. There's another version of Jack who he's effortlessly moved towards having a wife, having a family, feels content, feels happy. There's naturally going to be some things that he believes innately, inherently within his soul about relationships, about himself, that maybe this version of Jack over here doesn't quite wants to, but doesn't quite buy into yet. Give me a flavor as to what some of those stories are and how they're different.
So it's feeling just completely at ease with my decision that yes, this is the person that I want to spend time with.
Okay.
It's feeling like there's a future. It's feeling like there's not much self-doubt. It's okay to have some self-doubt, of course it is, but the self-doubt doesn't consume me daily.
Okay.
It's feeling confident that my decision is accurate and incorrect to pursue things with somebody.
Okay.
And I'm not constantly overthinking or ruminating on something that probably shouldn't really matter. And if I was able to not ruminate on it, it wouldn't cause me such distress.
Okay. So there's a few pieces there. So Jack's given me an overview on some pieces, but they seem to be in like a mild, not complete, but a mild conflict into some of the things that I wanted to originally treat with him, based on what he brought up in earlier in the session already. So there seems to be this strong sense of having certainty that he's definitely found the right person. And there's already an immediate sense of, okay, well, remember, we can help people make extraordinary changes in their mindset, in the way that they view the world, in their paradigm, in the lens to reality. But we can't negotiate with the world of physics in these situations. And so I have a feeling that the reason that Jack has said he wants that level of certainty is because then his doubt and self-doubt and worry and panic will go. But I could be wrong. Jack, is that something that's maybe happening here, or is there something else?
No, I think, yeah, if my self doubt and my panic and worry and my outlook on relationships and my identity around that would change, then I think I'd be more confident in the decisions that I make.
Okay. And so, as opposed to relationships cause depression, anxiety, what would that other version of Jack believe?
Relationships can create happiness. Relationships can create feelings of content. Relationships can help create feelings of gratitude for what you've got in your life
Okay. So,
and
happiness.
excitement and fun.
Yeah, there we go. So I'm just getting these down here. So we've got happiness, gratitude, excitement, fun, and contentment. And as I say that out loud to you now, I just want to double check how true that new story currently feels. Of but Jack, you're saying they cause depression, anxiety. You know as well as I do, happiness can often be caused by relationships. In fact, relationships cause contentment, excitement, all those things. How true does that viscerally feel to you when I say that?
It feels like, oh yeah, of course it does for other people.
Okay, lovely stuff. So we've hit the bullseye now. Would it be fair then, Jack? And this is where I want to do a bit of an overview to make sure that we're on the right track. If that inherent belief that relationships cause depression, anxiety for me, or frankly, name the negative emotion, and that the relationships caused that for me, went down from a 10 to a 0. And the memory that had the strong emotional charge to it no longer had any emotional impact whatsoever. Is there anything else we would need to do for you to break free of the anxieties that have been there on and off over the last couple of months?
I think that would definitely be a good starting point.
Okay, perfect. So right there, with SBT, generally we want to be able to treat three things in a session. Really, when we've been circling around different points, they seem to have come to two primary pieces. So these are the things that we're going to look to treat. And at the moment, we've got a 10, we've got a 7. These are lovely high numbers. And we're just going to see how low we can get them. And so, Jack, are you ready to go back to that super conscious space?
Let's go.
Fantastic. Well, you know the score by now. Get yourself nice and comfortable for me. And if you need to tilt the camera down just a little bit so I can see a little bit more of you, that'd be wonderful.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's perfect. As long as you're comfortable, that's all that matters to me. So you know the score. If you take one hand and you just rest it, there we go, on your leg, palm facing up. The other hand up like so. What I want you to do, Jack, is just, keep those fingers nice and locked together. And you know that I'm going to ask you to do something you won't be able to. But whenever you're ready to go to that space, I'm going to say the word go. And you're going to try your very hardest to keep the distance the exact same between each of those fingers. And you're going to fail to be able to. But of course, you need to put all of your effort into it, starting go. Slower, Jack. There we go. Even slower. Slow. There we go. Keeping the distance the exact same. All the same. Noticing that as each of those fingers, there we go, starts to twitch properly. That's right. And perfectly all by itself. We know that every single one of those continuing twitches is just that perfect outward sign that inner mind is already responding. There we go. It's the amazing work you and I are focused on getting done now. That's right, and just close your eyes now. Continue to see that with the eyes closed. And now don't try. Don't try to move those fingers. There we go. Just notice there's an energy that's just caught up in that hand. You can almost notice by instinct how different that hand feels from the other hand now. Knowing that in a moment that hand will begin to gently float down only as quickly as you return to the deepest, most enjoyable space of transformation you've ever known. And so superconscious, scanning from head to toe, out to this infinite field of awareness. And if there are any last pieces, creating any last pieces of resistance, you can treat them only in the safest, fastest, and most effective way. And so only once all treatments have been completed in their entirety, only once all last seeds of growth and transformation have been taken and absorbed and accepted, only then will you bring Jack back to full awareness at the right speed to feel alert, refreshed, noticing how much lighter he feels in your own time, in your own way, when you're ready. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, hello.
Doing wonderful as per usual. How are you doing there?
Yeah, good, thank you.
I do. So I've got to ask, sometimes when people go through the experiences, sometimes they see flashes, colors, ideas, concepts, memories. Sometimes they see just nothing at all. What was that experience like for you?
I didn't see anything.
Okay.
I didn't really see anything, any real images. But I did feel a real sense of, it was just at one point in what you said, and I just felt myself, I think I started crying. I felt tears come into my eyes. Yeah.
Okay.
But it didn't feel like, I'm not sure whether it felt like sad tears or whether it was relief tears or if it was a bit of both.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
do you remember the point?
Um, it's a bit hazy. Maybe towards the start.
Okay.
I can't remember. I can't
That's
remember
okay.
exactly what it was.
It's normally a sign of a good trance, as you know, sort of memory distortion, time distortion. So, um, remember tears of relief, especially if it's been something that's been with us for a while. Remember that grief sometimes.
Yeah,
It can be like saying goodbye to an old friend, as it's finally like, oh wow, this this has created a lot of pain that I didn't realize, and it's actually gonna
that
go.
resonates.
Yeah.
Mm.
So every now and again, even though we never see ab reactions with superconscious breakthrough therapy, which I love the fact that people don't go through negative things when they experience this transformation, and people sometimes get the odd tear, and it
Yeah,
sometimes really is just one or two where they feel like that was what was needed.
that's absolutely what it was. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I felt my eyes well. I felt my eyes welling up. And I felt, yeah, I felt tears. Yeah, and me being me was like, Jack, don't cry. This is being recorded.
Well, that's something that we have to remember for obviously anyone that watches this is that there's a different dynamic when there's a camera on that's been recorded where you know that you're not the only two people who are going to look at the session. But Jack, the transparency that you brought to the session, and you couldn't see the tears on camera, by the way, so you're good.
It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't
They
matter.
still think you're a man, Jack. Don't you worry. Of course you can cry. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Um, so I've got to ask then. Obviously, we looked at some deep, empowering or disempowering stories, some memories. 0 to 10, relationships cause depression, anxiety. How true does that feel at the moment when we say that?
Can't feel anything.
Interesting.
I can't feel that initial whoosh of fear.
Was there a sense of truth behind it beforehand?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were to try and pop a number on, obviously it was a 10. And again, Jack, we need to be really clear. We don't want to play please a therapist. If it's only gone from a 10 to a 9.75, we're going to say 9.75. We don't want to try and judge this up for whoever might be watching. Let's really look at it because once we know for what it is, we can do something else about it. So you can't feel anything, which is obviously from like I know you just start getting used to the training, but that's always a great sign. If we had to attempt to give a number to it, what number instinctively comes to mind?
One.
Oh, okay. That's a good a good sign. And that memory that you brought to the table in the session,
Mm.
0 to 10, what number would you give to that?
It feels hollow.
Okay, walk us
I don't
through
know
that.
why that word. I don't know why that word come up. It's the first word that I could think of. Just feels. I know that that memory is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that memory's there, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Okay. So that's really interesting. So remember, so hollow. Remember, because it was filled with negative emotional charge, right? It was like a mini bucket that had all this deep meaning and deep like charge to it because it was quite an intense moment that clearly had a knock-on effect later on in life. So there's just nothing there now.
Not at the moment. No, it just
There
feels.
we go. At the moment, so the three most common sessions you see in SBT session. Jack, why is it that those are the three most common words at the moment?
What? Not at the moment. Oh, because I'm scared that it'll come back.
Exactly. Right. So again, we don't want to wait for it to come back. We want to try and get it back now. So that 10 that went down to a 1, the 7 you didn't give a number to it. So I don't want to lead you into a 0. Is it a 3 or does it just feel like there's nothing there at all?
For the seven,
Yeah. So the negative memory that you said it feels hollow now. What number would we give to that?
yeah, probably a zero.
Okay. So again, that natural fear of, well, hang on a second, I knew that not only have I been carrying with this like with me for decades, so of course there's going to be a fear that it's going to come back. But just to prove to really everyone here that it's not going to happen, including you, we want to be practical scientists. We don't want to hope because remember, fear hides in the vagueness, it hides in the shadows. Or that
Mm.
dirty little woodlouse that's trying to go back under a log. So we want to say, no, is it actually there? So let's have a little look. So that would you still say it's a 1 out of 10 for the relationships cause depression, anxiety for me?
Yeah, it's low. It's definitely, yeah, one is the number that's coming up.
Or what was that smile?
It's almost like so the statement was, wasn't it? Relationships cause depression and anxiety for me. I'm almost questioning myself, like that's such a vast, sweeping statement, isn't it?
Yes. So right now, what we're doing, and again, Jack will know this, but one of the things that we look at is one of the things that we hate is fluff, ego, or spiritual dogma when it comes to personal transformation. Remember, we want to actually work out what's actually going on. What does it take from someone to get from A to B and create irreversible change? It's that what's starting to happen is Jack is moving from the old identity and map into the new map. And he's starting to work out, he's starting to realize, oh gosh, this is how I actually feel about it. Wait a minute, did I really feel about that beforehand? That's how quickly and safely and effectively the brain really can change. So let's jump in. Let's just prod the bear a little bit to see how Jack really feels about the map. So it's such a sweeping statement. What else comes up for us when we say, no, if I want to play devil's advocate and I want to say, no, Jack, you don't understand, that belief is still definitely there. Relationships do cause depression and anxiety. Tell me what comes up for you as the next thought.
Relationships have potential to cause depression and anxiety if you are with somebody that is not meeting your values, if you're with somebody that you just see different paths with, but you continue to stay on those paths because of whatever reason. So relationships definitely have potential to cause, distress. But the right relationship will cause the opposite of that.
Okay. So here's a really interesting piece is that during the treatment, when we went through literally that superconscious breakthrough, I didn't say any of that to Jack. Right? Before we did any of this work, we didn't speak about any of that. And yet, because your mind knows how to do this better than I can, better than someone else out there can, better than you consciously can, that's the kind of changes that you expect to see. Is that right now you're starting to see things for what? As they are, versus throughout the old lens of the past that was disempowering and unhelpful and frankly untrue, because they were just big, vast, sweeping statements. Right? It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
So let's unpack that just one step further, because again, we want to prod the bear. I want you to know that it really is okay. It's not coming back. I don't want you to wait and suddenly think, gosh, is it? So relationships can cause depression and anxiety, but in the nicest way, Jack, I'm not here to really care about anyone else at the moment. Right now, you're the client. I want to work out, will relationships actively cause depression and anxiety for you?
I don't know. I don't think so. I just think it depends.
Depends on.
Choices?
Okay. What choices?
Choices that I make.
Okay.
Um, it feels like it's in my control more.
Okay. Very, very cool. And again, Jack, obviously the skeptics are always going to be skeptical, but for anyone who's going, he's just saying that to please the therapist. It's like, and what would you say to them right now about that? Again, are we playing any element of please the therapist right now?
So Les asked me to jump on this call maybe an hour beforehand. We hadn't had any conversation about this whatsoever. And yeah, absolutely not. This is just from within and from what's just happened in the session completely. Yeah.
Okay. And right now, are we trying to pretend that like the results are better than they actually are, or is this truthfully what's coming up for you?
I would always be truthful with you because we've worked together in the past, and there's been sessions where I've said, "Do you know what? I didn't think I did that quite right," or "Well, I think I was trying too hard there." And I've said, "I think I've kind of wasted that session by doing this or that." So yeah, no, you know that I'm always honest with you. Yeah.
I know that. I think just other people might need to know that. So, um, so relationships can cause depression and anxiety based on choices, right?
Yeah.
So what I've done there is I asked a really difficult question for Jack. Is I asked a question that was almost like a predictive question of what's going to happen with your relationship. Is it going to cause depression and anxiety? If he said no, you know what, I'm never going to feel depressed and anxious in my next relationship. That's a lovely belief, but it wouldn't be based on truth because I'd be asking him to try and work out what the future is going to hold. So the fact that he said, well, I don't actually know because it depends on the choices that I make, shows both of us his brain has actually changed into a more coherent space and he can see things for as they are versus worse than they are, or he's swapping one delusion for another delusion of, oh no, I'm always going to be happy in a relationship. Right? That's what happens when we're helping someone make a true transformation. I'm not implanting like beliefs for Jack to now have. I'm asking for his mind to see things as they are in the safest, fastest, most effective way for him that's coherent with his values, not mine or anyone else's. That's why this is important. That's why the answers that he's given are just so valuable. So, Jack, that idea of depression, anxiety, that's what happens to me in relationships. It was a 10 for, I'm assuming, a while. Obviously, it was there for the last 3 to 4 months, maybe based on a relationship that you've been in or recently been in. But I'm assuming that's probably been quite a high on and off for what, the last decade, 2 decades, or are we talking more?
I'd say it's been quite high for about a decade.
Okay. So
Yeah.
on that basis, it should be quite easy to get it back up to a 10.
Yeah.
So can you do that for us? Can you make that feel as true, as scary as it did before?
Relationships cause depression and anxiety.
In you, remember? We're not bothered about other people. It's about whether it's happening for you.
So I'm looking for it.
Yeah, I know.
Relationships cause depression and anxiety. Again, it just comes back to that dependent on who you're with.
Yeah.
Depends who you're with. Depends if that person is essentially right for you or you can make it work with that person.
Yes. And the idea of actually relationships can give me, or I can be happy, content, excited. I can be those things in relationships, or relationships can give me those things. Beforehand, obviously, it was, well, I'm sure it can for other people. How do you feel about those things being able to occur for you now?
My one's a bit stickier.
Okay. Walk us through that.
I feel like I can't I can't feel the feeling of happiness, content, joy right now. So I'm kind of like, who knows?
Okay. So that's why at the end of normally an SBT session, we will ask some coaching questions. Because right now I'm asking Jack to say what's true for him in the relationship going forward. And again, how could he know? Right. So what action would a happy, content, excited version of Jack do within the next week towards his relationship that maybe the overthinking version that was existing previously probably couldn't do?
Would just be in the moment,
There we
like
go.
in the moment, not even thinking about the future, the past, not even thinking about the fact you're even sat with somebody, just being there in the moment. And then maybe when you go to bed in the evening, you're reflecting, thinking, do you know what? I had a very nice day actually.
Yeah.
Or um, being able to appreciate someone's character and how they made you feel. Um, just being able to just smile about maybe what you're doing the next day with that person rather than thinking, oh, we've got a nice activity plan, but I'm just going to be in the past or in the future thinking about other things. So I can't really enjoy it, but it'll be fun while we're there. Like, yeah, just being in the moment, I think, just allowing something to grow because you're not stuck in the past or the future.
Okay. And do you feel, and again, this is going to be a hard one to answer, I'm sure, but the idea of saying, yeah, I'm going to see that person, I'm probably just going to be more in the moment, does that feel more achievable for you? Does it feel less achievable? Do you just not know right now?
I don't know for definite, but I feel like it would be more achievable than it was beforehand. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. And when was the last time that you felt like that?
Sure. I think I've actually had times where I have felt like that with this person as well.
Okay. Perfect. So then when we think about the overthinking and a lot of the overthinking thoughts that you had, um, do they feel as scary as before? Do they feel even like you need to overthink about them?
I'm unsure.
Okay. When we unpack that, what are we unsure about?
I'm unsure if the particular things that I was focusing on are going to continue to be an issue, or if they won't be.
Okay. And the things that might have been an issue, were they contradicting to one of your values at all?
Um, no.
No. Okay. Interesting. So they weren't, they're not conflicting on any of the values of the blueprint. I'm imagining there's probably something in there that maybe we wouldn't be able to discuss in this session.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's something that we'd probably want to do something on in a separate session that was actually a little bit more confidential than going out to thousands of people. Um, but okay, is there anything else that you want to bring? So we know that in the next week you would be feeling a lot more. You feel like you could be a lot more present and you can enjoy it, but we won't know until we actually test it.
Yeah.
The feeling of that relationships caused me depression and anxiety, the truth of that statement basically dropped from a 10 down to a 1, which is great.
Yeah.
The memory went from a 7 down to 1, nothing. I mean, you said
No.
hollow,
I
nothing.
think hollow, nothing really.
Perfect. Can we get that back at all? Can we make that feel like it was as true and as difficult as it was before?
It just seems unimportant.
Okay,
That memory just seems unimportant. Yeah.
that's it. And that there is the absolute crux of memory consolidation, by the way. It's we can still remember the thing, but the emotional charge is normally there to say, Jack, you need to look at this so we can process it. The moment it's been processed, it's like, well, yeah, I know that happened, but why would I spend my time thinking about it? That's
Mm,
what happens when a memory or a set of memories or a series of events have been thoroughly processed.
yeah.
It's exciting. So the thing that would is like niggling me is I would want to have another session for those particular pieces because I don't think they're related directly to what we've spoken about in this session. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's something where naturally it'd be like, okay, we would have another session on that because it's actually a different thing.
Yeah.
But the general like the sense of overthinking, what about the fear that I'm just returning back to anxiety now? Does that feel as true as it did before?
No, I think the anxiety is like obviously we started the discussion earlier, didn't we? Around, Jack, what do you want to change? And I said to you, I think I'm reverting back to anxiety, and but actually, I think when we sort of started to narrow it down, it is just a relationship thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So we've been able
because
to
that is something that's so important to me as a person that I think it just over it overwhelmed everything um around me really, and it dragged me into this like overthinking depression. You can't enjoy anything else in your life because of that.
yeah. And what about now? What do we generally think about those exact same pieces now?
Well, everything that we've just worked on.
Yeah. Yeah, you said I can't enjoy other aspects of my life because this is taking all that up, and it feels like it's everything that you just described there. When you go back to those thoughts with this new paradigm, what seems to be there instead?
Um, shouldn't be this hard to answer that question, but I'm kind of just I'm looking for something. I feel like I'm looking for something.
Okay. That's because the thing that was there beforehand that was taking up all the overthinking time probably isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Again, is that something that's true, or did I maybe jump to a conclusion there?
No, I think that seems true. I feel like I'm searching for something to be there that potentially isn't holding as much weight.
Okay.
Or maybe even if it does hold weight, then it's holding weight for a clear reason.
Okay. Okay, so right now it's that thing of, okay, this thing got cleared. Now I need to actually go out and experience some aspects of life so I can work out what that actually means now. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Well, it makes sense, but would you say that's what's happening for yourself?
Yeah, I think to sit as I am now in my flat and to be able to say that's 100% true or that's 100% false would be a false belief because I haven't experienced it yet.
Yes.
Does that make
It
sense?
makes perfect sense. Whenever there's a belief or a philosophy about reality that affects something outside of ourselves, like this is how I feel in relationships, but we haven't had a
Yeah,
chance to actually test that yet.
that's it.
If it was just, am I an anxious person, the same old anxious thoughts, that's a completely different scenario. This originally started with anxious thoughts, but actually it came back to how I feel and what I believe about relationships. But if we've got no relationship to be able to test that against, it's quite difficult. It's like a phobia of tarantulas and say, no, I feel fine around tarantulas. It's like, well, we don't know until someone actually gets
Yeah.
a tarantula out and say, right, can you hold it? The moment that happens, though, it gets cemented and we go, we're good to go.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool. So that's an example there of an SBT session of someone who obviously came in, they're worried that they're starting to feel anxious again. They've started to realize, actually, I don't think it is that. I think there's just relationship anxiety because generally I'm in a relationship and I don't know how I feel because deep down, I think I believe that relationships and depression, sorry, relationships cause anxiety and depression in me. And a lot of it stems back from a memory that was really, really challenging. Obviously, this session is much longer than a normal session would be because we're having to commentate on it as we go through it. But you get the idea that we've been able to make a really big, tremendous leap for Jack there very, very quickly in a way that wasn't painful, was actually quite fascinating. We got to curiously explore a few pieces, and we're not pretending things are better than they are. We're going to see over the next week when he actually has those, like, he actually gets into the scenarios with relationships for his subconscious mind to be able to go, oh, yeah, everything is okay. Right. There's a part of him that already recognizes actually the idea of being present actually feels a lot easier to me. And when I think back to the old thoughts that I had, they don't really seem true or fair or accurate. So very, very excited to see what would happen. But naturally, because there's that limbo of we don't know what's going to happen, we would normally want another session after this because those other little nuances that he spoke about, we didn't do any of that in the treatment today. So I'd want to do some of those pieces later, if they're even a thing after the next week. So if you're watching this, if you're already in the school, fantastic. If you're not and you're thinking, I want to learn how to do that so I can see those kinds of results with people that quickly, safely, and effectively, that normally there's a link below that actually gives you more information. You can literally just book in and have a conversation with either me or a member of our team, and we walk you through the next steps as to what it's like to learn SBT and more importantly, what you can do with it. So love to see you there, and obviously we'll see you in the next video. Okay, Jack. So we are, I don't know if we're just, I think we're over a week now since we had that session. It might be like 9 days or something. And since then, you've had your birthday, you've gone away. Obviously, you and I have had like a bit of a sort of a casual pre-talk and a catch up before recording this.
Yeah.
But walk me through some of the differences that have happened, if any, since the session that we had. Obviously, last week we looked at some of the memories from the past
Mm.
that we thought was causing this big story. Then there was obviously the big story that actually other people might find love and happiness in relationships, but I won't because relationships will just depress me and make
Yeah.
me anxious. Can you talk to those things again? We don't want to pretend things are better than they are, as we discussed before we even started recording. But what's been the result of that? Obviously, since our session, since we first made those movements on those numbers.
Yeah, so I think the most significant thing is that the memory that we highlighted last week in that session, and we reduced that has stayed down, and it just doesn't feel true. Um, I've got evidence to suggest that as well, and I've seen things in myself and outwardly that I think show that that is true as well. Um,
Perfect.
yeah,
And there was another story there of relationships. Relationships will cause me anxiety and depression. I can't be happy in relationships. What about that sort of overarching story? How are we feeling about that? Obviously, 9 days later, since we've been meeting up with different people and all those pieces.
yeah, I think for that one, I've definitely had some times where I've felt like almost like optimistic and almost like wishes of excitement when I think like into my future,
Yeah.
which is something that I probably wouldn't have seen before. It was always the same story, or if I had those feelings of hope, it would always be brought back to, oh yeah, but that's not for us. Like that doesn't happen. That might stay for a little bit, but that'll go.
Yes.
So that's a significant difference, definitely.
Yeah, amazing. And out of everything that we've talked about, what has been the biggest difference that you've noticed over the last week, just in terms of day to day?
Um, I think I've just not ruminated on that thought as much.
Mm,
If at all, really. I think that was something that was really at the forefront of my mind, and it has been for a little while. And I would say just I haven't been overthinking it anywhere near as much. And if I have had a thought like that pop into my mind, it's diminished a lot quicker than it would have before.
yeah, amazing. And something that I know we've spoken about before privately, and something that we speak about generally with SBT, is sometimes people will come to a session, and we even got to see a little bit that last week, where they suddenly go, "This is the problem. There's this concern that this is starting to happen." And the moment that you either do a bit of coaching, but then you do SBT, you get to remove that. And
Yeah.
it's no longer actually the thing that you thought it was. But what it allows you to do is it's like the forest fire clears and you get to see some embers. And obviously, you and I aren't going to go into some of the embers that have that are sort of in the background. There's some other pieces that have come up that are obviously confidential that we won't be talking about here. But do you think that maybe you could talk a little bit to that concept and what you've been able to explore or understand over the last week since we've been able to do that session as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I look at it is that I've come to you with what I see as a really big problem.
Mm.
We've kind of we've definitely significantly reduced that particular problem. What's happened then from the questions that I've been asked, and delving a little deeper is, well, actually that big problem wasn't actually really that relevant anyway. And then in the questions that I've been asked, I've almost come to my own conclusion about things naturally, that I don't think I would have. Well, I know I wouldn't have come to if that big issue was still at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very often people say, I need help with this. And it's only when you actually remove that, the mind actually has that space to go,
Yeah,
oh gosh, it was never that trauma. It was never that belief. It was this little thing that I need to work on. And now I've actually got the space to work on that.
it's like clearing. Yeah, it's like clearing a fog away. Um, and the fog is like my thoughts, the rumination,
Mm.
and then as that fog is cleared, it's like, okay, there it is. I can see it clearly now. Right,
Yeah.
what do I need to do about it?
Perfect. So we've got clarity, and now we realize, and this is the thing with SBT, and this is the reason I love how holistic it is. Sometimes it's going to be psychology that we're going to be looking at, but sometimes it's going to be strategy.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we get to reduce a lot of the psychological pieces, you get to have, like you said, that clarity, and you realize, oh, there's a strategy that I now just need to follow, and that'll take me there. But beforehand, I thought it was purely this. Now this is gone. I can look at the strategy, and I just need to apply these pieces now, and I feel comfortable being able to do that. And what would you say to anyone who's obviously watching this, that's on the fence? Because I know that one of the byproducts of this, which is the reason that we generally do programs and not one-off sessions, is right now there's some other pieces that have come out the back of this really beautifully, where you've gone, I want to be able to work on these pieces now because I can. So in that way, it can feel transformational, but also again very underwhelming, because you go, actually, this thing doesn't feel true anymore, but I want to be able to do this thing, please. What would you say though to someone who was watching this, who was maybe on the fence about trying SBT, that was maybe on the fence about learning SBT?
I think from personal experience, being human can be really tricky at times, and I think one of the main things that makes human being tricky is not having clarity.
Mm,
Um, for me personally, and I know that would resonate with a lot of people. If you want clarity and you want to find peace of mind, I would say that SBT is brilliant for that.
amazing. And how would you compare it to other therapies that I know you've tried in the past?
Um, I would say a real clear route from one place to another. Um, I would say it's not just about the therapist, it's about you and what you are doing, but it's the guidance you are given by the therapist to take you down that road. Um, I've had so many different therapies in the past. I've had talk therapy, CBT, as you're aware, I've been on lots of medication and anti-anxiety, SSRIs, and this has been the most effective form of therapy for me.
Amazing. Derek, thanks ever so much for bringing the vulnerability that you did to not just today, but the previous session that we had.
Yes.
And I can't wait to continue to see you on the amazing journey that you're on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.